Be strong and get healthy. Stretch. Feel great about yourself and have some fun. It's time for you. Fitness is the key to your future. Don't get locked out. Take the challenge. Commit to be fit. Thanks for joining me today on Commit to be Fit. I'm Susie Smith. At the beginning of the year, people are more open to making changes in their lives. It's kind of like the calendar flips over to a new year and all of a sudden we feel that we have a fresh beginning. Well, that's what our show's about today, trying to find out how we are going to make that fresh beginning work. And I have a special guest today who's been here before, Paul Tripoli, addiction counselor and therapist. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you, Susie. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming back, Paul. This is great. We need to talk about things today that people, they need to make changes. Addiction is number one on my mind today. And it's such a big problem in our area. So I'm glad, you came on being an addiction counselor and have some ideas of what we can do to help people get over that hump and start to live their lives again.
We see in the new year especially a lot of people going through the holidays, which can be very stressful. They're home for the holidays and around family, which again can be very stressful. And then they might return to their own homes or their own dormitories or their places where they've been living back away from family. Some people, however, didn't have family to visit, or they've been estranged from family. And the holidays can be tough times, plus with the weather too. Mm-hmm. People are prone to the seasonal affect.
Oh, that is tough. When you're stuck in the house for weeks at a time, it's too cold to go out.
Or we used to call it cabin fever, right?
Mm-hmm. Cabin fever.
So the technical term for it is seasonal affect disorder, and it affects a lot of people. It just is kind of a humdrum, after the holiday kind of blues. And people get down in the dumps. And so I hear a lot of people making New Year's resolutions, and I'm not a big fan of the resolution.
I'm not either.
I don't think they have much weight to them, but if you set goals and then outline the steps to achieve those goals, now that's more solid than a New Year's resolution. What I mean by the steps to the goals, and when I work with clients, we always set goals for what we want, not what we don't want. For example, if somebody wants to lose weight, that's a negative, and then the focus is on weight. But if we set the goal that says, I want to feel more physically fit, I want my clothes to feel more loose, I want to have greater endurance and stamina, those are the kind of goals I help set with people.
Instead of saying negative things like, I don't want to be slow, you should say, I want to run faster. I don't want to be such a slow poke, or I don't want to be such a weakling. You want to say, I want to be strong.
Yes, and I will be strong, and I am going to be.
And it sets your brain up to believe that, doesn't it?
It does. It sets in motion a lot more of our endorphins. And when we think positively, which I know we're going to talk about, and so I equip clients that I see and anybody I see with some mantras, and one in particular where I have people repeat, I can, I will, I know, instead of I'll try, I should have, maybe I'll do that. But affirmations, very positive, very forward progressing, I can, I will, and I know.
Well, when I get up in the morning, I've started a new mantra that I've had enough sleep. I tell myself that, even if I haven't, because I don't sleep before the show, so it's all going through my head. But I say to myself, I've had enough sleep to get through the day. I'm fine. And I just say that to start my day. And then instead of waking up thinking, well, I didn't have enough sleep, I feel sluggish, that just sets you up for disaster, I think.
It does. I've used the analogy before that people tend to hit the snooze alarm, and I ask folks, if you did not get enough rest in the past 7 hours, how much more sleep are you going to get in the next 7 to 10 minutes?
That's true.
And you're essentially starting your day off with a lie, a deception that says, oh, 7 more minutes, I'll be fine. 7 more minutes, I'll just lay here in bed. And I agree with what you're saying. It's time to get up. The time to sleep is now past. It's time to get up and get going. People with addictions, and I know you want to talk about that subject because that's certainly near and dear to you. I know that there's not anybody that I've met lately that does not know somebody or some family who's had a tragedy related to addictions. So many people have died. I think you had told me that this year they project 64,000, or it's 64,000 that have
64,000 in 2017
that have already died from drug overdose.
in the U.S.
This is such a horrible, horrible epidemic and a sickness and a disease. And there's so many different interventions, but I know we're going to talk about exercise as one of those interventions and one of those tools to help in a person's recovery.
Well, exercise to me, and that's why I'm glad you're here, because exercise can take your mind away from your problems. And when you're exercising or you're standing on one foot, working on balance or whatever you're doing, everything else kind of goes away for a little bit, and it gives your brain that break that it needs. And like you were saying, it really hit home for me last year. My 30-year-old niece passed away from an overdose and left her 2 small children behind. And she was a gifted child and a straight A student, and she worked with people that had addictions. She was a counselor, and it still, it hit her. And I know she had some problems, and, we're going to talk about that, because I had asked you, if people are happy, can they be addicted also, or is happiness kind of like what stops people from going into drugs?
The way that I've seen it, and with the majority of the people that I work with, the anxiety that people go through, which starts back early in life, tends to lead people to feeling disenfranchised, different, alienated, strange. If you think about the junior high years, for example, most of the kids in these areas, they go to a school from kindergarten to the 5th grade. They know the same people and the same teachers, and the teachers know them. But then in junior high, there is in general a shifting of a lot of these small school populations, the grade school populations, to a junior high, mixing different people, folks that are strangers to what they were accustomed to.
So everything gets shifted.
It gets shifted.
Your
you
world.
have new teachers, and at the same time, kids are breaking into, if not already, going into those trying teenage years and hormones and
Those are hard
bodily
years.
changes.
Those are hard years.
Very hard years. And you don't have the same teachers, and they don't know your nuances and your little idiosyncrasies. You're exposed to a bunch of new teachers that don't really know you as well. And it's very easy for students to feel very lost. There's confusion. The very parents that you swore by and loved, now you can't stand, and you think they're your betrayers.
Yep.
And so
And that's normal.
it is normal part of the development, but it's a very struggle-filled time, a lot of adversity, and mass amount of confusion. So the academic requirements are typically harder now. So can you imagine a young person who feels lost, disenfranchised, going through some of the early stages or even the later stages of their bodily development, feeling awkward in their own shoes, and maybe even waking up one day and their face is all broken out, which is embarrassing.
And then they're bullied.
Bullied.
On top of that.
And that's part of that angst and anxiety that our kids go through. So imagine the scenario. You're at a get-together in somebody's house or basement, and they pass a cigarette or a bottle of booze or a joint, and you know for sure that you're going to smoke that or drink that or eat that because you're not really searching for the high, but you're wanting to fit in. And now, after being lost, here's a bit of an identity that you just carved out. And so that's the complex nature of addiction. Social, societal, hormonal, chemical. It's a very complex kind of a problem.
Sorry.
But once it gets started, it really rages on.
I saw a good trick or something to do for kids that are at a party, and everybody's on their phone anyway. But someone said that their child texted their parents just the letter X, and the letter X let the parents know that, okay, if your child would do that, but this child would text the letter X, and the parent would know to come pick the child up right away, that there was an emergency at home or something to get the kid out of the situation. So if you can kind of communicate with your kids that if they are being offered drugs and everybody's on their phone anyway, just do that little signal to your parent, and then that's your lifeline to get you out of there and save face among your friends.
That is one good method. I like that. I told my kids when they were teens, you can make me the heavy. Say, oh, it's my dad blowing up my phone. You know my dad, and you know the way he is. You can make me the heavy, and I'll come and get you.
That's a good idea.
But even though that's an outlet, there's still concern with what the peers might think. And so there's not a sense of self-identity. It's more of a, how do I think that they think about me? And it gets
That's so
broken up over the
important
group.
then, because you're still developing and you really are seeking approval. And a lot of that approval now, a lot of things that are going on, it's just so scary. And I hope if you're just tuning in, we're talking about addiction, and this is Paul Tripoli, addiction counselor and therapist. And we're talking today about the problem. This is a big problem here in our own hometown.
Well, in many hometowns too, as you know. It is the great equalizer, though. Addiction cuts across all gender, all race, all religion, all socioeconomics. It is really one of the great equalizers, but that's not the kind of equalizers we want.
No.
But with addiction, there's hope and there's recovery. The tricky part is, I have yet to meet a person that thought for sure by starting with drugs that they knew for certain they were going to end up addicted. The exact opposite. Most of us, when we're young, we're invincible.
Oh, exactly. We never would get old, and I can remember feeling that way and taking so many chances. I can remember our mutual friend Marcy and I jumping off of a cliff into water. We didn't even know what was down there. We just jumped off together.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let's do this. We'll go swimming. And when you're young like that, you just don't think that it can happen. You're just going to try this one time, and that one time might be your last time.
It's very powerful, too, because in a young forming brain, which is not totally formed yet, even though the brain itself is formed, what researchers have discovered is the connective tissue that meshes together the brain hemispheres isn't connected yet. And that doesn't typically occur or complete until around age 24.
Oh,
and
I
in
didn't
teens
realize
especially, you have a lot of impulse behaviors, and it's just an impulse that they go on. And so there's not a whole lot of forethought. If I do this, this may happen. That's what we call higher level cognitive processing, thinking ahead. And for teens, it's very randomized thinking, and it's very impulsive. So you can ask a teen, what were you thinking? And you'll get the answer, I don't know. But that's the truth. That's a real answer. They did not know. They weren't really pre-thinking.
So what do we do? I mean, what can we do if we know someone is in recovery, or we know someone is using, we have to step in. But if we know they're in recovery, what advice can we give them? What can we do to help people stay on track so that 64,000 people, and like you said earlier, 58,000 people died in the Vietnam War.
Yes.
64,000 died last year in the United States from drug overdose.
Yeah, incredible.
It gives me chills when I think about it, because I just wonder who those people are that are bringing the drugs in. And how can you do that? How can you do that to people?
It's a very, again, layers of complexity, but for example, I know people that smoke pot, and I'm not here to take a political stump, but if you're buying pot, say, off of a dealer, you cannot know whether this dealer is distributing other drugs. Even if you think you know that dealer very well and this is a guy or a girl we've always purchased from, they're part of the chain of drugs. They're part of the entire equation of drugs. They might only be participating in one aspect of it, but they support the whole system when you buy off of people on the street. And let's not forget that even our other professionals are under great scrutiny now too, as they should be. Many a physician who have been busted writing
the opioids,
overwriting prescriptions. Some that have been selling them out of their own office. Pharmacists who have gotten in trouble for doing the same thing. Dentists, other professionals siphoning off medications. Healthcare professionals who have been caught taking medications from their patients, elderly patients.
I've heard several cases of that.
So this addiction is very, very strong. And from a chemical standpoint, when you think about opioids, if I were to take an opioid, a pain pill prescribed, I would be wiped out. I'd be asleep. But in a person's brain, sometimes the opioids work as an excitatory neurotransmitter, and that person is on.
And they're feeling like they can do anything. They're invincible, and
their pain is going away, and anxiety is not there. They feel super. They're working more. They're more productive. Other people around them even say, wow, look at you. There's some secondary gains from it. They just feel super. But then give me that same person a week later and they've run out of the pills. They're in horrible pain, horrible withdrawals very quickly.
It's probably worse than it was before.
Much worse, much, much worse. And I know some people that were prescribed the medications for good cause, pain after surgeries or because of accidents, and the pain medication worked. And then a lot of people think, well, if one did good, two should help me get better faster. And it's sometimes very innocuous and very innocent that people get started. However a person gets started, though, there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of different treatments.
That's good to hear, that there's a lot of hope, and I want everybody to know that. There is hope.
There's a lot of hope, and for a person who's currently struggling with drugs or alcohol or gambling addiction, pornography addiction, shopping addiction, there are plenty of groups that
Cigarettes.
people can attend. Nicotine addiction is very strong. There's so many support groups, but even if you're not interested in going into a group, with the amount of time that a person might have spent on their phone to try to get drugs, you would spend a lot less Googling something or searching Safari to find help.
Well, today, I know we're going to bring exercise into the mix.
One of my favorite things.
Oh, me too. But once you take opioids and your prescription is done, like you've had a surgery, stop the opioids if you don't need them, if your doctor says that, you know, you're good, and start exercising, because exercise actually, it kicks up those hormones in your brain that certain drugs like Wellbutrin, is that how you say it?
Wellbutrin, yes.
Wellbutrin and Prozac. Like, some of those chemicals are kicked up through exercise, and so you can feel good and not have to take the drugs.
Think about this scenario too. When we talk about our own happy kind of chemistry, some of that is serotonin.
And serotonin, yeah.
So serotonin, take for example, if I extended an act of kindness to a stranger, say they dropped something and I simply picked it up and said, here, you dropped this. My serotonin levels automatically go up by performing an act of kindness. The person who I did the act of kindness on behalf of or for, their serotonin levels go up. And if you were standing there and you were a witness to what had happened, your serotonin levels would go up.
That just amazes me.
So just this sense of happiness, of doing good, if you will, or doing the right thing can raise serotonin.
Can I bring up my I have 4 rituals that you can do to promote happiness.
Okay.
And brought them with me today, because you just got into that. And the number 1 is asking, what am I grateful for? And I read that, even I have so much to be grateful for, and every day I list what I'm grateful for. But if you don't have anything to be grateful for, but you're searching for something to be grateful for, it works the same way in your brain. It still kicks up those hormones, and I find that like really amazing. So be grateful, and that will help. Label negative feelings. What do you think about that? Like I've got this crazy mood thing going on, and if I want to bring these emotions down, what does that mean? Labeling the negative feeling.
Sometimes I have clients, or a lot of times, that they identify with the emotion. Oh, it's my anxiety, it's my depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them, no, it's not yours. It is not yours. So if you start to feel anxiety, let's give it a name, like the heebie-jeebies, or the itchy twitchies,
or that's
even
good.
my dear sweet Auntie May,
Yeah.
something that distance that feeling state from you personally. So,
because if you're holding on to that label, it's my anxiety,
Yes.
It's my addiction or whatever, then you've kind of made it part of you, right?
it becomes a part of the person's psyche.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people live the label. So we don't want to live the label. We want to dismiss it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I tell people emphatically that I really think registers well is this statement: feelings are not fact. Feelings are just feelings. And we have multiple layers of feeling states, but they're all just feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And don't identify a feeling as fact. Therefore, you don't have to take an action, per se, on a feeling.
Just kind of acknowledge that you're feeling that way. Say,
Yes.
I'm feeling angry, and then move on.
Yeah, I'm feeling angry and I don't want that feeling. And then we change our mind over. Pretty tree.
Well, the next one, I really like this one, is make that decision. When you're on the fence about something, and just like how I am before I do a show, I'll go through like 10 pair of yoga pants and they all look the same. But I have to like eventually pull one out and say, this is what I'm wearing today, the same ones I wear all the time, basically. But it puts a lot of stress on you to not make a decision, to keep mulling it over in your head. And you don't have to make the best decision that any human being in the world has ever made. Make one that's good enough. Do you think that takes a lot of the oomph out of it? I mean, just, this is good enough.
I think our greatest power is choice. And to know that we have many choices. In the way that we feel, a feeling state might come over a person, but we can choose to think differently to change that feeling. And so when people decide to get help, they already feel empowered. They already feel better because they simply made the decision to get help, even before they made the call, even before they came into the therapist.
The decision, it's all about the decision. And something happens in your brain when you make that decision, and it calms you down, because then you've got a way to go. There's your road right
Sure
there.
you're not from my
I think I
village?
am, Paul.
And it is, and what your hands were saying is
Yeah.
you have a direction
Going straight, yeah.
instead of the ping-ponging back and forth, vacillating between this or that. If I do this, then that. But if I don't do that,
And it just goes crazy in your brain. It's too much. So make a decision about what you're going to do. It might not be the best decision. You can improve on it later. But
make
just
a decision and stick with it.
And
Just
stick with
take
it.
that route. All right?
right.
Right.
And the next thing I wanted to say was touch people. Not, don't be hugging everybody you see, but shake hands. Touch someone, say, hey, it's really nice to see you today. You make that contact, and I think that makes you happier.
You will find, if you ever attend AAs or NA meetings, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, to name two, for example, there is such a sense of family. They really work on that human touch. You'll see a lot of people hugging a lot of the time because it really has that needed effect, that emotional connection with another human being that says, hey, I'm going through this, or I've been through this too. And just that physical acknowledgement is so important.
Because we're all in this together.
Yes, we are.
No one is better or less than anyone else.
Not at all.
No.
The great equalizer that we said is addiction, but the one universal truth is that we all have intrinsic value. And nobody's value is diminished or taken away because of an addiction. doesn't raise a person's value if they are out of addiction, get a job, have an apartment, buy a car, and now are paying into taxes. That person's value is still there, and it's for them that their road of life is to maintain sobriety. And that's the biggest part of their life, and that's fine. They have great value, and they bring value to other people too, because it gives other people causes to work for, it gives other people inspiration, and believe me, we're going to need more and more people not only to go through recovery, because there's more and more people in addiction. So we need those folks that are in recovery and have been in recovery for many years to be able to be the coaches, the counselors, and the friends for those who are struggling.
All right, well, Paul, this has just been so exciting, so much information today that we ran out of time for our exercises. So we've decided to do part 2, and that'll be our next show. But I'm really glad you came onto the show today. There's just so much information that you're going to have to just come back a lot, and we'll have to give him a theme song like Bob Hope, because you're always on the show. So when you come on, we'll have to do a little.
I'll dream up something for you to sing, though, please.
Okay, that'll be great.
That's my intro.
But stay tuned for the next show. You know, it's going to be great. We're going to show you some exercises to do at home. But while you're watching this show, I really just want you to know that you matter. That is the main message we're trying to get across today, that if you would take drugs and overdose, you're not just hurting yourself, you're hurting so many people. So I want you to just hang in there and remember, take the challenge and commit to be fit.